This is question 1 from the slideshow on between subjects designs. It's saying that 2 researchers are interested in the effect of resume writing on self-esteem. The first researcher randomly assigns half of the participants to write a resume and the other half of the participants to not write a resume. So the researcher is randomly assigning half of them to the resume condition and the other half to the no resume condition. And the researcher is giving all participants a self-esteem test. And this is a between subjects design because each participant is going to either the resume condition or the no resume condition. And the participants who were assigned to the resume condition only experience the resume condition, and the participants who were assigned to the no resume condition only experience the no resume condition. But the other researcher has all participants experience the resume condition and the no resume condition because, well, half of the participants write a resume at time 1 and don't write the resume at time 2, and they're going through both conditions. The other half go through the no resume condition at time 1 and through the resume condition at time 2. And those participants are also going through both conditions, just in the opposite order. So since all participants are going through both conditions in the second researcher study, that means that the second researcher study is a within subjects design, because in the second researcher study, all participants are going through both conditions, which makes it a within subjects design. So the correct answer is B. Question number 2 is saying that 2 researchers are interested in the effect of resume writing on self-esteem. Half of the participants are randomly assigned to write the resume, and the other half are assigned to not write the resume. That's the between subjects design. In a second researcher study, all participants write the resume and take the self-esteem test at one of the 2 time points, and they also don't write the resume and then take the self-esteem test at the other time point, which is the within subjects design. It's the same scenario we had before in question 1. So which one of these is correct? Well, in a between subjects design, what you do is you calculate the mean of group 1 and the mean of group 2. The person doing the between subjects design would take all of the self-esteem scores from the resume group and average them, and take all of the self-esteem scores from the no resume group and average them, so that the researcher would have 2 different averages. That's what this says right here. And if you're doing a within subjects design, you have, well, each of your participants has 2 self-esteem scores, because each participant takes the test 2 times. So each participant has a self-esteem score at the time when they wrote the resume, and a self-esteem score at the time when they didn't write the resume. Which means that the researcher will have 2 columns of self-esteem scores. One column for the resume condition, and 1 column for the no resume condition. And the researcher will calculate the mean of column 1, which is the mean of all participants while in the resume condition. And the researcher will also calculate the mean of column 2, which is the mean self-esteem score of all participants while they were in the no resume condition. So it's A. A is correct. Now what about number 3? How many times does each participant have to be tested in a between subjects design with two conditions, a between subjects design with three conditions, and these two within subjects designs with two conditions and three conditions. Well, in a between subjects design, you only have to test each participant one time, because if there's two conditions in a between subject design, then half of the participants go to condition A and they're tested once, the other half go to condition B and they're tested once. If there's three conditions, 1/3 go to condition A, 1/3 go to condition B, and 1/3 go to condition C, and all three groups are tested once. So it's still 1. It's 1 for both of these, one time and one time. But in a within subject design with two conditions, every participant goes through condition A and they're tested, and they also go through condition B and they're tested, which means that they have to be tested 2 times, which is this right here. And in a within subject design with 3 conditions, each participant goes through A, B, and C, and they're tested under A, B, and C, which means that they have to be tested 3 times. So it's 1, 1, 2, 3. And there's actually some exceptions to this, because what this is really asking about the most simple type of experiment, the most simple type of between subjects design, or the most simple type of within subjects design. Because what can actually happen is that in a between subjects design, what you can do is have half of them go to A and half go to B, like this. But then once these people go to one of the two conditions, you can test them more than once under that condition. So what you could do is send half of the people to condition A and test them 2 different times in condition A, and send half to condition B and test them 2 times in condition B, and it's still a between subjects design. So this is one thing that could happen. And if you're testing in a within subjects design, you have to send people through the sequence at least once, through condition A and condition B, but you might also send them through the conditions more than once. So it could be that each participant experiences condition A and condition B, and then experiences condition A and condition B over again, like they would in reverse counterbalancing or block randomization. So it's possible to test, if you have 2 conditions like this in a within subjects design, it's possible to test people more than twice if they go through the sequence more than once, like they do here. So let's go back. This is true, but this is actually the minimum number of times that you would have to test people in these types of experiments, because and I'll explain what I mean by minimum. if you have a between subjects design with two conditions, meaning half go to A and half go to B, if it's a between subjects design with two conditions, you have to test each of these people at least once. And you have to test these people at least once in group 1 and group 2. In a between subjects design with three conditions, A, B, and C, which means 1/3 go to A, 1/3 go to B, and 1/3 go to C, and you have three groups. In this type of between subjects design with three conditions, you have to test these people at least once. You have to test these people at least once, and these people at least once. So it's still at least once for each person. In a within subjects design with two conditions, A and B, you have to at least test each person twice at a minimum, because each person has to go through the sequence at least once and be tested at least once under A and at least once under B. So that's the minimum. And if it's a within subjects design with three conditions, each person has to go through the sequence at least once, meaning they have to be tested at least once under A, once under B, and once under C. So in a within subjects design with three conditions, the minimum number of times that you have to test each person is 3. So here we have a minimum of 1, here we have a minimum of 1 time. Here we have a minimum of 2 times, and here we have a minimum of 3 times. Each person has to be tested at least once. Here each person has to be tested at least once. Here each person has to be tested at least twice. And here each person has to be tested at least 3 times. So I'm just trying to explain to you that this is actually the minimum number of times for each of these experiments. So when I say have to be tested, I'm meaning the minimum number of times that they have to be tested. And which type of experiment is a larger number of participants needed when more conditions are included? Well, in a between subjects design, you need every condition you add to the experiment adds another group of people, because if I want to have 20 people in each condition, it means that with 2 conditions I would need 40 people, with 3 conditions I would need 60 people, and with 4 conditions I would need 80 people. But with a within subjects design, I could just have 20 people regardless of how many conditions I have, because the 20 people go through all conditions. So it's B is the answer. Now what about this one? Well, if it's a within subjects design, you have a single group of people that are going through condition 1 and condition 2. So the 2 conditions don't have separate groups. So it's not correct in a within subjects design. In a between subjects design, group 1 goes to condition 1 and group 2 goes to condition 2. But in a within subjects design, one group of people goes through condition 1 and condition 2. matching is used in a between subjects design because matching is used when you have separate groups of people, meaning group 1 goes to condition 1, group 2 goes to condition 2. And you want to make the two groups as equal as possible. You want to make it so that they're similar types of people. And the way you can do that is by matching the people before you randomly assign them to conditions. So it's used in a between subjects design. Well, one thing that you would definitely want to make sure of in this resume writing experiment is that that the two groups had equal self-esteem at the beginning of the experiment. Because if we're looking at whether resume writing increases self-esteem, we want to know that the two groups had equal self-esteem at the beginning of the study. That way, if the resume group ends up having higher self-esteem at the end of the study, and the no resume group ends up having lower self-esteem at the end of the study, then we can be confident that the resume did have an effect on self-esteem. So it would be a good idea to match on previous self-esteem, just so that the two groups would have equal self-esteem going into the experiment. And if you matched them on height, what that would do is it would make it so that the two groups would be equal in height. The resume group and the no resume group would be equal in height. But that doesn't really matter much for a self-esteem study. If you match them on level of education, then the two groups would have equal levels of education, and that might be something that you would want to do, but it's not completely clear whether whether education is strongly related to self-esteem. This is saying is that if I have all of them take the self-esteem test at the beginning of the study, I match them into matched pairs based on their self-esteem scores. Then one person from each pair is randomly assigned to the resume condition, and one person from each pair is randomly assigned to the no resume condition. By matching people on their previous self-esteem, I can make sure that the resume and no resume groups are equal on their previous self-esteem. So the no resume and no resume groups are likely to be highly equal on previous self-esteem. That's because of the matching. So we know that this is correct. However, we can't expect the resume and no resume groups to be exactly equal on all personal characteristics, because we're not matching them on all of these 5 things. We're only matching on previous self-esteem. So this A can't be correct. And what B says is that because we randomly assigned them to the two groups, that the resume and no resume groups will be highly different on these 4 things. Well, the fact that we're randomly assigning people to group 1 or group 2 should make the two groups fairly equal on these 4 things, because remember, random assignment tends to make the groups equal on personal characteristics. So this is not correct. Random assignment won't make the groups highly different on these things. So what's actually correct is, because of the random assignment to group 1 and group 2, the two groups, resume and no resume groups, are likely to be fairly equal on these 4 things. And because of the matching, because of the fact that they were matched on previous self-esteem, the groups are um, guaranteed to be highly likely on their prior self-esteem. So it's actually C. So what actually happens is the matching definitely makes them equal, definitely makes the group equal on their prior self-esteem. And the fact that we're randomly assigning to group 1 and group 2 should make the groups fairly equal on other personal characteristics as well. I have all participants take a self-esteem test. I'm matching, so I did do the matching. I matched them on their prior self-esteem. And if it turns out at the end of the study that the mean self-esteem of the resume group was higher than the mean self-esteem of the no resume group, which alternative explanations can I rule out because of the matching? Well, since I matched them on their previous self-esteem, what it means is that the two groups had equal self-esteem at the beginning of the study. Because of the fact that I matched them on self-esteem, the two groups had equal self-esteem at the beginning of the study. What that means is that you can't say that the people in the resume group already had higher self-esteem before they entered the study. That's not possible because I know that the two groups had equal self-esteem going into the study. So C is ruled out. The matching ruled this out. Now, the possibility that the resume group had more education, that's not completely ruled out because it could be that the people in the resume group were more highly educated and therefore had higher self-esteem. It could be that the people in the resume group had higher incomes and therefore had higher self-esteem. So A and B are not completely ruled out, but C is completely ruled out because of the matching. When you use matched pairs, what you do is you once the data is collected, you take each matched pair and you subtract the score of person 1 by the score of person 2, and you get a different score. So you get a different score for every matched pair. And then you can calculate the mean of all of the different scores. So when matched pairs are used, you calculate a mean difference score. When the matched pairs are not used, you just calculate the mean of all people in group 1 and the mean of all people in group 2. So B is correct. Number 11. Which of the following is true about a study in which participants are matched on IQ scores? If you match people on IQ scores at the beginning of the study, then you'll know for sure that the two groups are equal in IQ, or at least highly equal on IQ, because each of your matched pairs will have one person who goes to group 1 and one person to group 2, and the two people in each matched pair will have highly similar IQs. So if the people in each matched pair will be highly similar on IQ, And because of that, the researcher will know that the two groups, group 1 and group 2, are highly equal in IQ, which means that if the two groups perform differently, it's not possible to say that they perform differently because of an IQ difference. So it's B. Oh, we already did this one. If you're doing a between subjects design, and one group writes a resume and one group does not write a resume, you have an experimental group and a control group, because the group that writes the resume is an experimental group because they're being given a treatment, and the no resume group is a control group because they're not being given a treatment. So it's an experimental group, control group design. Now, what if I'm comparing three groups? I'm comparing the self-esteem of a resume writing group, a group that creates a social media profile, and a group that does nothing. I have three groups, which means that, or I have three, you could say I have three conditions, which means it's a multi-level experiment. A multi-level experiment has more than two conditions. Even though I have a control group, it's not an experimental group control group design because an experimental group control group design has two groups only. It has just one experimental group and one control group. So that's not what we're doing here. It's also not a within subjects design because I said that we have three separate groups of people. If it was a within subjects design, one group of people would be going through all three conditions, and that's not what we have. We have a between subjects design. So the answer, so it's not C and D. It's just C.